Hey you guys, it's Amanda. So today I wanted to make a video kind of talking about introverted feeling because it is one of my four cognitive functions. It's my tertiary cognitive function. And the reason I kind of want to talk about this is because since getting into MBTI and finding out that I was an INTJ or whatever, I just find it useful because it's just another form of self-improvement. That's how I look at it. And, I'm really interested in that and just kind of like self-growth and knowing who you are and understanding like basically how you work. And I feel like MBTI is a good measure of that. One other thing is that I find that there's a lot of other sources out there who kind of make, pretty broad generalizations. They kind of make these list formats of like behaviors, which is fine. It's good to kind of be able to relate or, to understand yourself, I suppose. But I feel like that's a very like shallow look at MBTI. And I feel like it doesn't always apply. And, especially for types that are like, specifically INTJ, which I'm not ever with the all or nothing approach when it comes to like templates or whatever. And that's why I get a lot of my information regarding MBTI from Personality Hacker. I feel like that's a really great source. I feel like they kind of break down cognitive function better and like stay a little further away from behaviors. Because, behaviors can be applicable or not based on your own life experience. Anyways, so I really like Personality Hacker. I also stumbled across this one guy. His name is Scott Morgan. He's actually an INFJ. And he did an analysis or his own analysis on INTJs. And it was basically spot on. Like, it was an amazing video. And it was interesting to see, that it was an INFJ describing an INTJ rather than, an INTJ. And his video is super long. And he takes a long time to talk, like even longer than me. So, what I did was I just kind of split it into like quarters, and I'd watch a quarter and then kind of go do something else and, soak in the information and think about what he discussed, which is basically how I learn a lot of like really full amounts of information, just taking kind of pieces at a time and then, doing my own like thought process after learning something. Because for me, if I take in a lot of data, it's kind of like too much. Like, I don't, like half of it doesn't even like really get in to my mind. Anyways, I'm rambling. So Scott Morgan has a really great analysis of INTJs. But anyways, back to introverted feeling. The whole reason that I'm discussing this is because I feel like there's a lot of sources out there who say that INTJs are cold and, void of emotion or whatever. And I do understand that that's somewhat true. Like, I would say, that people might say the same about me. Although it's hard to, that's more in real life. Like, this is my own personal like journal. Like, these vlogs are like kind of like a way of like taking my intuitive side and my introverted feeling and like putting it out there, because I don't really do that in my regular everyday life. Like, first of all, through a natural vetting process, I choose people that I feel like would even have, any interest in what I talk about. And it's a very slim selection. Anyways, aside from that, I just feel like, I'm older, so I've learned through life experience like how to use expression by like, kind of like studying other human behavior and figuring out like what works. A lot of times, like, I feel like your internet personality is going to be like part persona and part, like the real you. You are realizing, like, even though this is kind of like a journal entry for me, I realize that other people might be watching this. So I care about, making things concise, time limit, like, am I being understood, like, how do I, look or whatever, just normal human things, when you realize that somebody might be watching. So anyways, God, I'm really getting off topic. So, introverted feeling. Okay, so I don't find it necessary to express my emotions to other people very often. One, I think that's because I don't necessarily feel comfortable doing it, and two, because I just don't feel like there's a need for it, really. Now, I'm not so cold that I don't tell people when they're like doing a good job or when I'm like happy with them or whatever. I try because I'm aware that other human beings need that quite often, that I will try to actually, say things. And oftentimes, there's a whole dialogue in my head of how silly it sounds, but I continue to try nonetheless, because I don't feel like you should just accept your type and be like, oh, okay, well, this is how I am, so, I'm not gonna, make any qualms about it. No, I feel like you should use that as like a basis to improve upon yourself, or learn more, or put yourself out there more. But yes, oftentimes people do think that I'm sort of cold. I do find it entertaining when around people to kind of like fuck with them, or like be jokey, or like just make kind of like, different types of jokes. I don't ever try to like hurt people's feelings. I'm just joking. It's a way that I entertain myself. And anyways, so what I do regarding introverted feeling is I meditate, and I've talked about this already and how important this is to my life. And there's a couple of different reasons why I meditate. The first reason is a reset, like a reset button. You're consuming so much information, you're around so many people, like you hear so much talking and opinions and blah blah blah. Especially now with technology the way that it is, that oftentimes you just need to come, alone, be still and quiet, and just hit that reset button and kind of like do nothing for a little bit, consume nothing, and get back to a kind of base place. That's one reason I do meditation. Reason number two is, an ideas kind of area. Like, I'll use meditation as a place to kind of like think of ideas and concepts, and be quiet so that I can kind of like work things out in my own mind. And a lot of that has to do with like videos or whatever. Although I haven't been as creating very much lately. Anyways, and then the third reason is I use meditation to process my own emotions. So during the day, I will go through whatever series of events or experiences, and a lot of times, I won't even understand how something has affected me. And then sometimes it's more like I understand in the moment how it's affected me, but I just keep going. I don't really allow it to cause any like huge amount of emotion, because I feel like that can oftentimes like cause my behavior to change, or like have me look at something in a less than objective way. And so I'll just kind of compartmentalize it. And then once I come to my own time when I'm alone and I say meditate, I will use that time to think about, well, like, how did that make me feel? Or, what is it that affected me today? Or like, why am I in a certain type of mood? Like, and I'll go back in memory and I'll like replay certain events, or I'll like look at ways that I affected other people, or how they reacted to me, or what I've said. And a lot of times, and I do this in solitude, but it's very colorful actually. I do feel a wide range of emotions, and sometimes I use music in order to, just feel a certain way. Like, sometimes I feel like humans are so busy and they do so many things that you don't take time to process your own emotions. By the time you come home, you just want to relax, you want to like turn on Netflix or something. You just want to like I don't distract yourself. But it's it's important because we are human beings and we do have emotions. It's important to process those, or they can kind of build up and build up so much that it creates a overall mood, or certain thought patterns, turn into emotions. Like maybe you feel a certain way because, somebody said their opinion of you, and, you've heard that from a number of people. And so that thought pattern starts repeating in your head. And so I just feel it's so important to process your emotions. Like I did when I was younger see a therapist because my parents thought there was something horribly wrong with me. And maybe they were right. I don't know. It's not important to me now, but I did see a therapist because I didn't know how to process my own emotions. Like, and what these therapists would say is like, basically the number one thing they would say is, how do you feel? Like they would probably ask that right away. And it always I'm like, oh, like when they asked me that, I'm like, I don't know. It just scrambled my brain. I was like, how do I feel? What kind of question is that? Like, what is that? I don't know. How do I feel? And I felt like just paralyzed from not being able to say how I feel, or even know for myself how I feel. But after kind of going through an awakening and kind of I don't know, which I need to talk about again in another video, my thoughts on that. But after doing that and starting a meditation process, it's like I don't feel the need for therapy. Although I find it useful for so many people, and that's a good starting point, especially for, I would say, introverted intuitives, like people that are a little less adept at understanding their own emotions. I don't feel that it's necessary for me in my life today. That's not saying that I would never, if a certain series of events occurred in my life, which I couldn't really deal with, then I would definitely go back. I mean, I think it's beneficial for a lot of people, including myself. But I just feel like I'm in a good place right now in my life for emotional awareness. And a lot of times processing the emotion involves knowing for yourself what you feel and perhaps why you feel that way and how it relates to your past or whatever. And then also, taking it a step further, which is finding an outlet for that emotion, because it's not necessarily going to be concluded in one meditation session or a series of meditation sessions. Sometimes you need to go and create something to really fully process it and kind of let it go and get it out of yourself. And I feel for introverts, a lot of time that is something creative. Whether you write about it or paint about it or dance about it, whatever it is, you're just that's the physical expression of your own emotion. Do you know what I mean? So I don't feel like all INTJs are cold, maybe to a good number of people, we'll call them normies or whatever, that we are cold, because I don't just share those things with anyone. I'm going to vet you over a long process. First, I'm going to intuitively figure out what I feel about you, and then everybody starts with I have an open mind, even regardless of my first intuitive thoughts about somebody. I will give them a blank slate and then just kind of watch their behavior over a period of time. And it takes me personally a long time to be able to trust somebody with my emotions. There's really not that many people that I have in my life currently that I would fully trust with my emotions. And, to me, that's fine. It doesn't bother me. I don't need that. I feel in the way that I look at things is that I want to not have to need things from people. I want to have relationships, and I want to share ideas, and I want to share moments with other people, but to be dependent on other people for certain things in my life is just not something that I feel benefits me as a person. I feel I want to be able to, if that person were to leave my life, still be a full and complete person. And that's the ultimate goal for myself. And if that seems cold to other people, well, whatever, then I guess I'm a cold person to you. And it doesn't really bother me one way or the other. Anyways, so I just wanted to talk about introverted feeling. Sorry that I'm a little scatterbrained right now, and I will talk to you soon.